and welcome to this week's edition of Blacklisted Radio, the last program of 2014. I want to thank all of you for joining in and being part of this show by listening to it, by spreading it, by supporting it. 2014, what a year. So many things to really look at when trying to reflect on 2014, what we've learned, what we've done here on this show, how the world's changed. All of those things I think are very relevant and well worth exploring. Not going to be able to do all of it in just this short show. As some of you may have noticed, I've been under the weather, so not feeling the greatest. Cedar fever is what we call it here in Central Texas. General allergies and things like that just end up turning into general sickness. Spare me all of the great remedies that some of you send in. I know I need honey. I need more vitamin C. There's a lot of things I can do, and I am doing it. But anyway, 2014, I appreciate all the support. Get a lot of those things whenever I have a cold, and it's pretty much seasonal. The perennial cold that most people have in this area. So it comes, it goes. And, well, anyway, we're here. We've made it through 2014, more than likely. This is the eve before the eve, New Year's Eve. It's the 30th day of December 2014. By the way, my name is Doug Owen. I am the senior editor of blacklistednews.com and your host, humbly, of the Blacklisted Radio program. The website dedicated to the show is blacklistedradio.com. You can also follow along and interact with me via our text line, which is always handy and convenient for you. Put it in your phone or whatever device you use, 512-222-3067, or you can just tweet at me. BLN Radio is the Twitter handle. And so there's a few things I want to get into. Of course, we're going to talk about 2014. It was defined by fake chemical weapons, or maybe not fake chemical weapons, but a fake narrative that justified the U.S. intervening and the almost invasion of Syria. We had the Sochi Olympics, which really was the end, I think, of the goodwill towards Russia, and was used as a nice stepping stone or covert cover for the impending, we didn't know at the time, but coup d'etat that took place in, or the Maidan, the revolution, however you may see it, that took place in Ukraine. And now we have almost a year of war, very high civilian casualties, depending on who you listen to, and it's very hard to get accurate numbers on anything, but the end of, I think, goodwill and a lot of economic partnerships that we've seen being built up over the last 20 years, really a redefining and a reordering of the New World Order, kind of happened this year. Missing planes, Malaysian flights, inside jobs, speculators, people selling stocks like the CEO. Right before the latest plane went off somewhere to become a media, well, they found the bodies now, but to become a media phenomenon, at least for the last few days. What's happening in New York and with the warrior police in the United States of America will be the primary topic of this show. I have a lot of stuff I want to talk about, especially in light of recent updates in the NYPD department and in the mayoral department, de Blasio's, I think, mutiny that is taking place. So it's very interesting to me. Some other things that have changed this year, some very pivotal Supreme Court rulings, like the one that has just come down this week, Heinen versus North Carolina, not getting a lot of attention considering all of the other things that are happening just in the 24-hour news cycle of Americans and the general public being shifted from crisis to crisis to crisis. We narrate the chaos. That's one of the monikers of this show. We try to do it anyway. We attempt, and 2014 was, well, I think that before we get to the police and the police state, that more and more people are discussing and talking about, we should look at least for the show and for the listeners out there that have continued to support it. 2014 had a very modest goal, and that was to create great content, or at least attempt to, on a pretty much weekly basis. I wanted to do more interviews. Didn't end up doing nearly as many as I wanted. Like, by that I mean next to none, just a few. Guillermo Jimenez, I think Michael Vale, a few other people graced the show this year. I need to reach out and extend out to some people that I have in a list of to interview folks. But with the birth of my son this year, which is probably the most pivotal thing that happened to me personally ever, I knew that I would not be able to dedicate as much time to the show as I have previously in previous years, and that support would probably dwindle a little bit due to lack of content. That's why I'm just over appreciative and really humbled by the amount of support, and in lieu of pretty I wouldn't say lackluster efforts, but just not as much attention to the content as usual. So 2014 has been very special to me, and a huge humbling experience, becoming a parent and having new worries, new considerations, and a completely new viewpoint of where I believe the country is and where it should be, if you will, and your priorities and all of those other things that go into decision making, and your overall opinion, your worldview. Things change when your worldview changes. So 2014 had some pretty pivotal things happen. The renaissance of the security industrial complex and the proverbial big brother apparatus, a global spying system that is just collating massive amounts of data on average Americans on a daily basis. It has become at least a discussion in this country. So I think that there has been a lot of new topics that were once conspiratorial, that were once too taboo. I mean, with the illumination to, or at least the government's admission to, torture by the Central Intelligence Agency following the events of 9/11, we have a new moral obligation to really uphold for what's left of the legitimacy that the U.S. has in almost all of these global relationships. So the economy has been a big portion of that. Of course, Russia, Ukraine, Russia, all year long. It's been a tit for tat from Syria to the Maidan to what's happening now in Belarus, the crash of the economy, looking at how money is being used as an economic weapon. And boy, oh boy, gas prices. The one place that most people thought it would never go. And that is, it's pretty amazing. I was driving home today and I saw gas for $1.69 a gallon. And surreal. Never thought that these prices would be this low. And this whole debate about why prices are so low, I think that is pretty interesting. That you have tens of 20 or 30 or 40 experts on all these policy shows and the Sunday shows that all of you politicos watch, and nobody can give you a straight answer to why gas prices are so low today. So maybe those are some of the more notable things that happened in 2014. Other things that did not happen, predictions. I usually do a spoiler show where we go through all of the failed predictions of people out there that like to make predictions. And I think I probably made some that were too far out there. The Bush-Clinton dynasty, that prediction, still coming true. Not much of a prediction, but Americans are more apt to buy into it. Latest polls, if you believe them, show that Bush and Clinton, they're the two most popular choices for the president of the United States or the United Corporations of America in just a year and a half, or just, well, under a year now. Really, I guess it would be 1 year from now, we'll have maybe one of them, or maybe Mitt Romney, or who knows? I mean, that's going to be an exciting thing to see how this plays out. But at the moment, people are okay with the Bush-Clinton dynasty. Imperialism, we're okay with that too. We're at least on average. Though, if you look at 2014, there's some pretty astonishing numbers to show just how crazy a year it really was. Tumultuous, that's a understatement. All right, so I wanted to talk about New York City. Now, New York City, of course, Ferguson would be a huge issue that 2014, at least the latter months, have focused on, and this is police brutality. New York City had a similar situation where you had a police officer who exerted excessive force and basically assassinated a man named Eric Garner, sparked a wave of discontent and protests in New York City, and it spawned a few crazy people and or the one gentleman that decided to assassinate a few police officers, at least according to YouTube videos that became available. It had been shaken down by police, probably less than mentally stable. The whole backstory, I haven't had a chance to really vet, but needless to say, the result is that you have people that are driven crazy by the media and by the lack of accountability. They feel that lashing out is the last resort, and even though we saw this huge wave of violence in the United States of America, only 114 police officers were killed in the line of duty. Now, that sounds like a lot of people when you look at the millions of people that live in the United States of America, 300 million, 310 million, 320 million, whatever it may be, depending on who you count and how they're counting people in this country. 114 police officers in the line of duty. I mean, there's more people that are probably killed running convenience stores. That is probably one of the or liquor stores. You start looking at the amount of people that are killed jaywalking. There's a lot of things that are pretty dangerous. Being a jaywalker, being maybe an electrician. Lots of people are killed in the trades fields in this country and around the world. If you're an electrician in China, I mean, I don't know how many you go through annually. Point being, not that many people actually die from being police officers. It's a dangerous job, but it's not that dangerous. Well, the rise of the warrior cop and, the last 20 years have really pushed policing into more directions. I mean, I try to take the police officers out of the equation. And on the last podcast, I talked about, take them out of the equation and just put robots or other sentient or semi-sentient beings that are policing us, the American people, into the equation. Who do you blame then? Because really, police officers are just people that are trying to enforce laws or compliance They're trying to do what it is that is, asked of them by their superiors, whether it's running a dragnet, grabbing people's private information off of Facebook, harassing people for jaywalking, setting up speed traps, most of those things. And doesn't excuse, individuals that are doing things that are illegal, but that's just, police work in Americana today. That's just what it is. It's if you decide to become a police officer, you're going to be asked to write people tickets. You're going to ask to pull people over that don't have registration, that don't have insurance. That's kind of the gig that you get into. But so in the direction of the police and how they do their job, and whether they do their job or whether they assassinate people, I think is a direct reflection on society, number one, and number two, the police department, their superiors, and the government, the local government. If you look at what's happening in New York City, let's look at what happened, just a few years back. The predecessor to Michael Bloomberg, Rudolph Giuliani, was an authoritarian and really corrupt. I mean, the guy, just one of the prima facie examples of his nepotism and criminality was taking tens of thousands of dollars worth of New York Yankees baseball game behind home plate seats. He got some of their World Series rings with estimated value 25 to 50,000, and was directly involved in different contracts for the renovations, upkeep, and different union bosses involved in Yankee Stadium. So, I mean, completely compromised and, invested in making money with the Yankees. And, that was New York City. Then you had Michael Bloomberg, billionaire, gun control advocate, somebody who is a authoritarian to the extreme, search and frisk, basically having everyone in the city shaken down. During this time, the police department, the assassination of primarily black people, and we talked about some of the statistics on Doomcast, but a lot of African Americans and a lot of poor people in the city were targeted, different neighborhoods. Basically, just a dragnet of police shaking down people, and there was some reduction in crime. And watch out with Bloomberg, because he knows how to manipulate numbers. So when you start saying, "Wow, look at all the great things he did," like reducing soda, the ounces that you're able to consume, ruled unconstitutional. But that doesn't stop the police officers and local code enforcement and all of the other branches of local government from going and shaking down people. And that's what the government has been doing there, shaking down people. People are sick of it. NYPD actually had a clandestine unit go down to Ferguson because they knew about the Eric Garner decision, probably had insight to the fact that the grand jury was going to exonerate the police officer, and looked at professional provocateuring groups, and they were definitely ahead of the curve, using they call it the Iron Ring, this new multi-platformed surveillance system that is tied into just about every kind of online social media network. It's tied in with it rivals what we have in London, which is the premier police state surveillance grid. Call it what you will. I mean, total information awareness, total ubiquitous viewing of everything. And you would think with all of that, they'd be able to figure out, who's breaking into your car, but good luck getting any information out of them for that. So, sorry, but it's one of the things that just drives me nuts. People are like, wow, you need all this, Doug. stop the criminals. As soon as you ask for a police officer's body camera, like, oh, can't help you there. Can't get anything going on. Well, anyway, so this has created quite a stir. So the successor to Michael Bloomberg, Bill de Blasio, he's a character. I didn't know a lot about him. I've only recently been interested and familiarizing myself with him. And this guy is a PR nightmare. It doesn't matter who it is, what group. Black Panthers, the Israeli lobby. This guy panders to everyone, and he's just a professional politician. Not a very bright one at that, in my estimation, my opinion. And basically, he said that there was blood on the hands of the New York Police Department, to some extent. And I'm just trying to pull up his quote here, but let's just say that they weren't happy about it. Let's see. I had a quote from him. I could play the clip, but I'm not that interested in giving him the time here. Anyway, he basically put some of the blame, or at least the police union put his words and pitted them against him, and are calling for the police department to basically go rogue to a certain extent. They call it wartime policing. We kind of talked about that last week too, and what that really means. And what they've coined a blue coup in the city is taken on. Oh, here it is. He said that has the blood of the 2 dead cops on his hand. He was issuing a physical threat to both persons of the mayor and civil authority to which the police are subordinate. So this is Patrick Lynch, and he called de Blasio basically a murderer. It depends on, people hype things up, but that's the narrative that, he's saying that it's de Blasio's fault. Well, that's not the interesting thing. Union bosses and politicians pointing blame at one another. Another story that happens every day. Just another day in the empire, another day in Mafiaville. But the interesting thing is that when de Blasio was speaking, and he is the chief, he is the head honcho, he is above the chief of police, and he is directly in the police department's chain of command. He is the officer's superior. And all but one, at least that has been photographed that I've seen, police officers at this event turn their backs on de Blasio. Now, I'll just say this. If I was to turn my back on my boss when he was giving a speech anywhere, and I don't care if we're doing this at a Golden Corral Christmas party, if he was toasting his daughter-in-law or something that was completely trivial. If you give your boss or anybody the rub, it's probably not going to be good for you. You're probably going to be in trouble. You're going to probably get some kind of scolding, some reprimanding from the man. And just look at the chain of command in the military. Not that the police department should be the military, but same structure. This is nothing out of the ordinary that the mayor is in charge of the police department and ultimately responsible. Because if if you're going to put the blood on his hands, then you're going to have to admit that he is the boss. If he's not the boss, you can't blame him for everything that happens in New York City, which is really easy to do if you're a kind of slimy union boss working for the police department, where the police can do no wrong. Anyway, so the question now is, who's running the police department? If de Blasio is not running the police department, the police chief is unable to get the police to do what he wants them to do, which is ticket citizens. What happens? Well, this is what happens. People don't freak out. The police have decided to basically punish the citizens of New York by refusing to give out tickets and citations for things that they would usually, chase you down and bug you about. Criminal courthouse summonses, 4,831 in 2014, only 300 change, 94% down. Traffic violations in 2013, 10,069, and that was down to 587 in 2014. I could go on. But basically, the whole gist here is that society is not crumbled. The majority of things that police officers that we believe are absolutely necessary to have a civil society that we can all enjoy is probably not necessary. The huge deficits that cities are running for this faux security that we are getting, and that's what it is. Security theater and lots and lots of training for things that aren't that relevant. I mean, your local police department where you live in a town of 4, 5, 6,000 people. I mean, they can go to 10 hours of IED training and learn how to drive a tank, but it's probably not going to help them very much in their day-to-day lives of mundane things like pulling people over and giving them speeding tickets. But anyway, nonetheless, there is no panic. There's nothing happening. Now they're saying that they want 2 officers to respond to all of these calls, and if they're not, then you just make the decision as to what you want to do. And I mean, that's kind of dangerous, scary, and telling, I guess, that you have a union boss telling cops to basically decide what calls to go on, which ones are too dangerous, which ones they would like to go on. And I just think about the citizens that they are sworn to protect and to serve. And if I just decided I didn't want to pay taxes sometimes and other times I do, I wonder how that would go for me. I wonder how that would work out for you out there. If you just decided to go to work sometimes, or you just decided to pay a bill sometimes, you just decided, well, I'll pay my insurance company when I feel like it. Not that I'm somebody that's a big rule follower, never have been. I've always thought that civil disobedience is worth the price. Unfortunately, it takes physical violence here in the 21st century and really appalling things to bring attention. It's not new, but to bring any kind of attention to social justice issues, self-immolation, perfect example. Even 40 years ago, trying to bring attention to the Vietnam War. People didn't really start getting freaked out until they saw the body bags and saw people burning themselves in protest. And, that really kind of sets the tone for where we're at. Because it's all fun and games and seems kind of far off and distant when you don't have any skin in the game and you don't realize what's happening. I mean, I have 2014, 20 Orwell quotes that may have came true. I know it's cliche, Orwell, 1984, 2014, just being 20 years off. And one of the predictions, I didn't bring it here, but was that we live in a world where basically where to question authority is to be unnationalistic and not care about the nation. And wish I had it here, but anyway, it's pretty telling when you see this the complete, I think, betrayal to a lot of people that they've seen by the police and by the state, especially this year. 2014 has changed a lot of people's minds about policing and how we should be doing it. And that, you're starting to see at least a small glimmer of hope that people will, just stop participating and stop asking the government to do more. I look at all of these horrible laws and all of the policies that the Bloomberg police force, the jackboots were enforcing, and it's, mostly about enforcing taxes, penalties against you. Eric Garner dared to sell tax-free tobacco, something that, at the end of the day, we have taxes because, that's a form of revenue generation for the state. And I think people are okay with that on a philosophical level. They're okay with you taking a little bit from them if you provide a service. But at some point, and we've reached that point, the services are no longer apparent or very good, or the police are just selectively deciding to protect you or come to your home or your car accident. And people no longer feel like it's something that they have to have. I mean, apparently here in New York City, you have a reduction up to 80-90% of what the police are doing, and things haven't just gone into chaos. Interestingly enough, we talk about how it's created the police state has created a revenue generator, and I was looking at some of these interesting articles that we put up in the last few months, one of which kind of highlights how you can't shake down enough people to pay for a bad police department. Case in point, lawsuit is filed against the NYPD every 2.5 hours. Every 2.5 hours, somebody's suing the government for violating their rights. And according to this recent study, proves that the government, the NYPD, pays out $484 million in lawsuits every year for police brutality, you name it. So when you really think about that, I mean, you can't shake down enough people and generate enough revenue to pay for bad policing. And you would think that would be what de Blasio, or even maybe the union that is trying to use its political leverage and really tellingly using the police force for what it is, and that is a self-interested mob of people that are more interested in their own maybe well-being in their minds than they are of the general citizens. And I have to say that all of the heroification and glorification of the police and the first responders, I mean, all of that is completely negated when you look at what's happening there, where, just last year, I think it was, in Oakland, the police chief saying that he wasn't going to respond. They weren't going to respond to burglary calls until the board was able to, the city council rather, was able to hire more police officers. You just think about that. I mean, you're extorting the city council because you need more police officers. So the ones that are there, you're not even going to, have enforcing things that benefit the citizens. They're only going to be in the revenue generating capacity. And it just kind of blew me away, but it's very telling of what they believe their job is. And that's just horrible training and using police to go after your neighbors because you don't like them, or their yard's too messy and they have a tire on the side of their house, or whatever it may be. It's behind every one of these really bad laws was somebody who was vindictive, and they created a law to go after, not maybe even, just people in general, but a certain person or a certain group of people or a certain homeowners association. It's pretty funny. But anyway, NYPD not are punishing the city by not arresting citizens as much. Yeah, the city can and probably will do just fine. I mean, Eric Garner might have not been paying taxes, but I'm sure he was putting money back into the economy, even though it might be illicitly. His family, they were, I'm sure, quite shooken up now, but we're in a better way when he was alive and providing for them. That's now another burden on the state, paying his family, all of those things. Not that they shouldn't. It's not, they do absolutely deserve whatever kind of restitution they get, if they get any restitution from the state, in my mind. But nonetheless, it's going to be a really crazy time in the very near future. I think that you're going to see a very polarized police department. They're feeling pretty betrayed, and they should, because they're being asked to do things that the citizens don't want. It's not fair to them. It really isn't. Getting them to shake down people and to treat, the people they're supposed to be protecting as, ATMs. That's what it's become. Policing and keeping you safe is really about hitting you up for as much money. And then if you don't have the money, putting you in jail for it. Debtors' prisons are back here in Texas, and this is a recent story that we just published at Blacklisted News. At least 6 people have been jailed in Texas over the past 2 years for owing money on payday loans, according to a damning new analysis of public court records. The economic advocacy group Texas Appleseed found that more than 1,500 debtors had been hit with criminal charges in the state, even though Texas enacted a law in 2012 explicitly prohibiting lenders from using criminal charges to collect debts. Now, this is something that the government is doing, and that is private debt collection. If you look at it extends to even this Sony hacking scandal, false flag that is unraveling, by the way. Nobody believes the FBI or their forensics except for people that already hate North Korea and want to believe the state. Those are the only people. Security experts, people in the government, outside of the government, with ears in government, all agree. There is a consensus outside of what you hear at State Department press briefings that North Korea was not behind the attack on the lackluster and boring movie, The Interview. I didn't see it, but the box office speaks volumes. And even with all the attention and, telling people that they could get blown up in a movie theater, I can't think of anything that's a better attraction. And I'm not being sarcastic or facetious. I absolutely mean that. People love the allure of death. That's why people buy cigarettes. They can kill you. People want more. You can't argue with that. I mean, people in marketing 101. The things that are more scary, the packaging, the more they put more gross details on these cigarette packs. Go to Canada and you basically have to smoke a PSA. The whole thing is bloody, tumor-filled lungs. It has no effect. Actually, there's scientific evidence that it has a positive effect. People were kind of lured by it. Anyway, so that's what the government is doing. They are collecting money for the media industry, the movie industry, Sony, other corporations, Japanese corporations. That is what the government's critical infrastructure is. Kind of the same thing. I mean, there's some parallels there when it comes to local police, state police. Your constable's about protecting property, and there's lots of examples. I think it was California that was impounding people's vehicles for not paying toll fees. So basically you have this company, a private-public partnership where people pay to get on the toll. The toll road invests and builds a road for people to use, and they never get paid off, by the way. Biggest scam in the world. This thing will be paid off in 5 years. Everybody reallocates the money. It never, ever, 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 ever gets paid off. So it's the never-ending money well, and where it goes and where the money finds its way to is always, a different story. Who got their hands on it, how it got back to the King of Spain, whatnot. But it's the same thing. So you have this company that the government, if they're not making enough money, sometimes has to actually pay and subsidize. So these toll companies were leaning on the government, saying, look, these people aren't paying their toll fees. Arizona has a similar problem where a lot of these companies that have red light cameras are going out of business because they don't. People just don't have the money. At least a couple of years ago, to pay for them, and they were drying up, and they're leaning on the government. Hey, what are you going to do? Help us out. So then, the state says, well, we'll go and start repossessing people's cars, and we'll auction them, and that's one thing that came, I think, to light for a lot of people is civil asset forfeiture this year, and how that affects families, and how something that is so minor, I mean, we're talking about misdemeanor offenses, can land you in a bad way where you're fighting the state and paying for it, by the way, for your own property. So there is plenty of examples of how the state is only working in corporate interests and not so much citizens. Just to look at Ferguson, or to regress back to what happened in Ferguson. I mean, the police, I've said this often, if their mission was to do anything, it should be protect people's property. Did a pretty piss poor job. If your job was pissing off people and spraying them with tear gas, if that's really what you wanted to accomplish, mission accomplished, great job. But that's not really what they should have been doing. When it comes to the police state, it doesn't just stop there. It's taking a lot of interesting and kind of creepy turns. One way is that they're going to start in some areas. They're starting pilot programs where they're going to test sewage for traces of drugs. They're already doing this with pharmaceuticals, trying to find out how much pharmaceutical drugs and other things are in the sewers. And, it's an interesting way to find out what people are eating, what kind of habits people have. It's another, I think, privacy issue. Is it your poop, or is it the government's poop once it leaves your house? It's one of those things that we never really thought about. And we have with trash, the government wanting to look through your trash. That sets some legal precedents, but never before has anybody really wanted to look through your poop. But anyway, they're going to be testing it to see where they should put more policing and where there's more drug issues, where you have higher drug usage. So interesting ways to police your neighborhood depending on what you're putting in the toilet. If it's scientific research, I guess that's one thing if somebody wants to do that. But if that's the basis for how you police and you basically shake down people, then you realize, obviously they don't have enough great things that they could be doing, and other blatant crimes that are happening that have victims. That's what I expect police officers to do. When I'm a victim, when I am being victimized, I want somebody that can help me, or at least try to stop other people from being victimized by the same people that victimized me. The bare minimum. If you can, maybe you should arrest that guy before he goes and victimizes other people. Just seems like a pretty reasonable expectation, or something that the police should strive for, that they should try to accomplish. Well, anyway, not so much. Going through your poop, maybe. Michigan governor now signing a bill requiring drug testing of welfare recipients caught my eye today, because I always, look at the people that need assistance. And, if you're living on next to nothing, working at Walmart and getting government welfare, the only thing that you probably have to look forward to is doing drugs or drinking. I mean, what else are you going to do to entertain yourself? You can't go to a movie. They're $20. You got to work 3 hours at some of these jobs to enjoy, eating a meal at one of the places that they work at. Not that I believe that, giving people, huge amounts of minimum wage or, things that are well above the market is a solution by any means. But going after and targeting the people that ultimately receive the smallest portion of the welfare seems like a great way to make people think, especially conservatives and Republicans and the like, that you're trying to clean up corruption. All these welfare people are exploiting the system. They're buying drugs with their EBT cards, their Lone Star cards. They're buying filet mignon. I mean, you can go on and on and on with all of the different ways that, people, given any opportunity, will and always do take advantage of it. I don't care if you're a welfare recipient or a police officer. People in positions across the spectrum in every country around the world and every job line exploit the situation. Knew a guy that did inventory at a company that sold computers. Got busted for stealing computers. He was the guy that kept the inventory of the computers. Why did he do it? He thought he could get away with it, and he was in a perfect place to do it. My wife's aunt's an optometrist. Lady was buying colored lenses and selling them to different nail and hair salons and ordering them through the company. Why did she do it? Because she was in a position to order contact lenses that she could sell to nail salons. I could go on for hours and hours. Police officer in a patrol car uses his badge to try to get young teenager to take off clothes so they can photograph them. I've got 2 articles up this month of police officers doing that very same thing, and even worse in one case in Scotland that's on the front page now that I'm not going to talk about. So it's not that, this is necessarily a bad idea, but when you try to look at the ROI, okay, that's what I want government to do, is give me a decent return on the money that I'm putting into it. The public interest means that you're more interested in it than people that are just trying to make a fly-by-night profit. So this should be in the public's interest. So going after the poorest people that may or may not be on drugs, spending, I don't know, according to this article, tens of thousands of dollars annually to pay for drug tests seems like a great way to spend a lot of money. Spend a lot of money, and at the end of the day, probably not even stem how many people receive the welfare recipient money, because they tried this in Florida a few years back, and lo and behold, it was a very, very small percentage of people that took these drug tests that actually showed up positive. I mean, people that are on a lot of hardcore drugs and have, heavy drug problems, so much so that they couldn't pass a drug test, which probably isn't that hard, I would imagine. If you're clean for a month, 1 month out of the year. I mean, if you're having people, going and getting tested every year or every month being screened, I mean, the amount of resources and effort that you would have to put into that, just outweighs any kind of good societally that it would have, or even financially. But it feels good. It's this feel-good stuff that, people buy into. And that's why this Michigan governor is probably being lauded for this. Oh my God, because it's those darn people on welfare. I would praise him if he actually went after the people that, the big welfare recipients. Let's drug test Walmart. Let's drug test the politicians that are being paid millions of dollars in cases, going on very lavish vacations and the like to support lobby-issued, lobby-written legislation. Those are the people that cost you a lot of money. Those are the people that you really want on the up and up. Some guy that's working at the gas station for minimum wage that has, a lower than 80 IQ. I don't really care if he's smoking pot at night. It's better than paying $40,000 to $60,000 a year to incarcerate them. I mean, that's what people don't get. It's like, when everybody's a criminal, we'll just have, maximum employment because everybody will be working for nothing in, corporate sponsored prison, working for fractions of it. The people that are working at Walmart might be getting $25, but the people that are working for the Corrections Corporation of America, they're not making $0.25 an hour. And then the taxpayers are paying for them to live in their little Foxconn camp to, like I said, $40,000 to $60,000 a year. So, giving somebody $40,000 to $60,000 a year, and what that would provide for their families, and the trickle down economics of that would be far more beneficial to local economies, businesses, people that have money to put back into, buying daily life necessities, even going to bars, even going out and drinking and buying Jack Daniels still has an economic benefit. And so we would have a much better society if we just gave people that money. Not that I think that we should just give people money or just, but when you really do the math, but this is the thing. Even if you show people that math and you say, look, this would be better societally, it would help the Eric Garners out there that don't need to be incarcerated, that don't need to be, that don't have the money to pay the arbitrary fines that you're going to levy against him. It's better to have them out there supporting their families, being part of it, rather than the state. It's cheaper. It's better. It's really sad that people can't get that, but that's what the whole point of government is. It's about using it as retribution. That's why we have all these crappy laws. It's because it's about going out there and making sure that somebody's not getting away with something. And it's always convenient that those people are politicians and they're always going after the people. There's a lot of people that have gone to jail for all of the collusion and all of the fraud that happened after 2008. Just none of them happen to be currently employed with companies that spend millions, if not billions of dollars on political campaigns. They're just not those people. There's a few Bernie Madoffs. There's a few other hedge fund guys, some people that used to work at Goldman Sachs that bit the bullet, that are going to spend a couple maybe even a year or two at some federal prison, some minimum security Fed holiday, but that's because why would you want to put those people in jail? They're the ones that are they subsidize government. They are the the welfare queens, because it's always a rentier that wants something back from the state. And that's what happens. You end up having a government that's working for the music and the movie industry. You have a government that's working for the toll roads. You have a government that's working for the cameras, the license plate reading cameras that are watching people's faces. See, at first it's about, making sure that you're not, speeding or paying your tolls. And it's not about your freedom or your anonymity. We don't care who it is. We just want to make sure we can conveniently bill you. Now you find out, we are biometrically scanning all of the cars and even passengers. And you're like, well, why do you need to know all of that? Well, and I just never know. You might be a terrorist or police officer might need to talk to you, maybe ask you for some money on the side of the road. It is some of the preposterous things that were pushed this year in the United States of America, one of which is that people could just pay the police officer right there with cash or credit. You could just, he just have his little, they don't have a ticket book anymore. They have a pad, a digital pad, something like an iPad. And, they all have their own little, have a PayPal card scanner there and hit you up for $200 on the side of the road. He could be the judge. You admit your guilt. You waive your rights and give him some cash. And you're just like, wow, that's a great idea. And I think even some of the people that would be victims in that scenario would be fine with it, because it's better than, the scam of waiting 5 months for your ticket and then having to remember to pay it and go to some court date that's far out. You're going to have to whoa, oh, I've got a loose wire here, I guess. Oh, sorry about that. So anyway, yeah, it's a lot of people would probably be more apt to do that. I would be that way almost. Just leave me alone. Take my money. That's what you're here to do. So I guess we're going to end the show with the same note as always. And that's one of the things that's great about knowledge and, these rants and raves, I think, is that it puts it in perspective. It definitely helps me bloodlet and vent a little bit, but it's also a way for people to have a dialogue and talk about things that I think most of us should be pretty interested in. And, it's something that touches all of us. We all have to live in a society where we have a burgeoning population, and we have to, find a way to make things somewhat equitable. And right now, we just have so many examples of why the government has to be, the people in government have to be reined in. And it's not so much to hate people that are in government or all the other people that have used the shield to abuse you, but we have to have some kind of system that is going to continue to, bear fruit. Or we're going to end up in a situation where we're only a few notches up from some of our business partners in South America, like the Mexican government. So that's why I think it's pretty important. I want to thank all of you for continuing to support the show. Sarah, Kay, Robert, producer Craig, Jake, all of you out there. We did receive donations. Jason C. sent in $10. We also had Stancil, who said, thanks, gentlemen. Swamp Stalker dropped $10 our way. We also had some Bitcoins that were put into the till. You can do that at blacklistedradio.com. This is not corporate sponsored. We don't sell your time to the Berkey guy or to anything, to gold dealers or other people that would like to sell you maybe the best products possible, or just junk. We don't have to go through any of that. If you sell products, you can always advertise with the show by supporting it. So you're supporting us rather than us having to support you, and it does create support back and forth. That's the cool thing about it. Do you find value in these shows? Please continue to support us and spread them through 2015. I can't believe we're already here. That is pretty surreal to me that it's only been a year. And we're going to continue to do it into 2015. And my New Year's resolution is going to be to, just like last year, do a lot more with the show. So thanks to all of you that have continued to support it, as I said, and I will be back next Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time for another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. You can follow me on Twitter at BLN Radio. That's the handle, and you can get the news feed at blacklistedRadio.com. All of that online in the meantime. And until next time, take care.